everyone. Welcome to the next edition of Language Talks. In this episode, we have a guest from the editing and training field. After working in the corporate space for several years, she took up a career in writing, teaching, and editing in the English language. She mentions on her website that she helps people communicate their thoughts and ideas so that they can achieve their goals. And when she isn't working, she loves discussing books which she has read, the music and podcasts that she listens to, and serials and film that she watches. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Lalita. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Michelle, I read your book of poems, Random Everything. It is wonderful. In the
Thank
preface,
you.
because the poems are good, of course, but I would like to talk about the preface. In that, you have mentioned journaling. So, can you tell us the importance and benefits of journaling?
Yes. So it is something that I always didn't do it because, like most people, we feel like, what if somebody reads my journal?
Hmm.
We are a little hesitant to write what we truly feel because we wonder whether someday somebody will read it.
Hmm.
Uh, During the pandemic is when I started journaling. I
Okay.
was dealing, the situation was difficult. Everybody was having their own issues. And it was difficult for everyone. You could hear sirens everywhere, and there was a sense of fear, and you didn't feel relaxed. You
Hmm.
felt like you don't know what is going to happen next. So there was anxiety building up in me, and I was not sure how to handle this anxiety. For a
Hmm.
while, I was a little unwell also. And then somebody told me there were two people who kind of came into my life. One was, somebody's yoga instructor, whom she said that she's very helpful in terms of mental peace and calm also. So I
Hmm.
worked with her for some time. She told me to start writing. She
Hmm.
said, just write whatever you're grateful for. Whatever you're grateful for, write it every day.
Hmm.
And then later on, when I worked with an art therapist for my anxiety, she also said, besides the art, you also write.
Hmm.
So I began in 2021, and I didn't know what to write. So
Hmm.
I started, there's this author, Neil Pasricha, and
Okay.
he wrote this book, something called 2 Minute Mornings,
Okay.
about writing down what you want to do. He also told mentions a nighttime routine that he and his wife have, that they every day they think of two things that went well during the day, one thing that they think it should have gone better, didn't go
Hmm.
so well, and one thing that they're looking forward to for the next day.
Okay.
So I started doing that, just
Hmm.
thinking about these two three one two things that went well, one thing not so well, and one what I'm looking forward to for the next day.
Okay.
Then I started writing like 5 things I'm grateful for.
Hmm.
And when you start doing that, um, sometimes you feel like I will run out of things
Hmm.
to write about. But then I felt that never mind if I repeat the same thing the next day. I started
Hmm.
repeating stuff also, but I started realizing that there was a lot that was good. Either you're staying with family, you have not fallen sick, all family members are well, you can still do your work. There's
Hmm.
electricity in the house, there's water, little things.
Hmm.
I saw a
Yes.
bird today, something like that. When you start
Hmm.
noticing little things, you realize that it's not as bad as you're thinking in your head. And when you
Hmm.
write it, you can go back to it.
Hmm.
1 month, 2 months later, you go back and you say, okay, it was okay. Now I have passed 2 3 months, I've passed 1 year, and things are okay.
Hmm.
So some people also believe that once you
Hmm.
start being grateful for what you have,
Hmm.
everything starts to get better. So that's how I started first.
Okay.
I kept changing my method. Sometimes when I used to write, I used to think of something that would work as a poem,
Okay.
2 3 lines together. I didn't try and do rhyming because I said that is something completely alien. I will get stuck with my thought if I'm trying to think of what to rhyme it with. So
Right.
let me just write free verse. So I started like that. And then a couple of years later, that's when, this opportunity for publishing the book of poems came about. And I'd published 21. I had about 8 or 9 ready. And I had to give them 21 poems in 21 days. So
Oh.
I had a head start. I had about 8 or 9 ready. And then I started thinking and writing of the other ones. So that's how, the journaling led to writing and then led to this. I never considered myself a writer.
Okay.
I had never attempted it. I only did, I wrote, but for official purposes, like when I was working, but
Correct.
just not for, pleasure. Then I started my blog and all that, all that helped to improve the writing and get more confidence. But yeah, it all started with journaling. It puts less pressure when you just have to write one page. You think, okay, I can manage one page, and then gradually the writing, you get more confident.
Please tell us about this book, Random Everything. Which is your favorite poem and what are the readers appreciating? Please tell us all.
So I chose it as Random Everything because there was not one theme throughout all the poems. Each poem is different. Most of the poems I found, I was going towards nature, things I saw and things I heard. Like the first poem is called The Kingfisher, because I could hear there's a kingfisher where I live. Oh, the bird, he comes once a day and he screeches as he comes in and he's on the wire outside. So that was the first one that came to me. Then gradually about other things. Some of the favorites are, there is a poem called Being Stuck. That I find appeals to people. It was not one of my favorite. What I've recorded in these poems are basically an instant when something happens, or a thought that comes to you. So being stuck is about being in a situation where you have to do something, but you are not sure what to do. There are 5, 6 different ways. So that decision making paralyzes you. You start saying, I won't do it, leave it, let me think about it some more. It paralyzes you. Sometimes the problem is there are too many choices of what to do. Sometimes you can't think of what to do. But through the poem, I show that, sometimes you may not know what to do, but once you take one step, whichever direction, take one step, and then slowly the next thing will come up, the next thing will come up. And you can maybe change your path as you go, but you're stuck till you take the first step. Once you take the first step, everything starts to get a little easier. So that was one. Another one, which is one of my favorites, is growing up, I had a favorite singer. He was a British gentleman called George Michael. I used to love his music. And since I was a teenager, and then in 2016, he passed away suddenly. And so I think about him often. And so I wrote this poem as like a letter to him. It's called Dear George. So that is one of my favorite poems. Different people have different ones. There's some on the way women live, the choices women have to make. It's called Let Me Put My Face On. How women pretend to be something, or they show a face to the world when they're dealing with a lot of things inside. So different people like different things. I'm surprised at some of the choices. The ones I like and the ones people like are very different. I think it depends on what situations people are in and what they connect to. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
The book is traveling around now. I've only recently started paying a little more attention to how it is marketed, because I'm learning along the way. And I'm glad that it is just, passing from place to place. I've seen at one book fair, people pick it up. They may not buy it, but they pick it up and they look through it.
Oh,
And some places, I sold copies even when I was not there.
okay.
So it's there's been a mixed thing, but I'm very happy about it.
Okay.
At least for a first attempt, I'm giving myself the space to enjoy it, whatever happens. Yeah.
Yes, yes, of course. In this digital world, it is so difficult to cultivate and preserve the art of writing. But you have been doing this diligently with your writing and speaking courses. So please tell us about them.
Yeah. So as you has introduced me, I worked in the corporate world for about 17 years. And one of my last jobs was I started out as a secretary, but then later on I moved to working as in human resources. And there I did a lot of work, which was, in terms of writing, communicating with people.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of writing and drafting and all that. And then I realized that people were coming to me even with their what they wrote and say, look at this, is it written
Hmm.
properly? Can you recommend changes? Still,
Okay.
it didn't hit me that, I was writing well and it is something that I could do.
Hmm.
Uh, but after I switched, after I left and I started working as an editor, which was about 6, 7 years ago,
Hmm.
I did some level of training in editing.
Okay.
And then I realized that what I knew was good. I had a flair for a language, I knew the language,
Hmm.
but writing it required some more knowledge of the craft. And the
Hmm.
training that I did 2 courses, and that really helped me realize. I even recollected things I had done in school, and
Okay.
I realized that we people who read, they take their skill of writing for granted. That's because
Hmm.
when you read, you basically, sentences are like music. There's some kind of rhythm in it,
Hmm.
and readers recognize when they read a sentence. They recognize if the rhythm is off. They will
Hmm.
know something is
Hmm.
missing in this sentence. Something is wrong. Non-readers don't have that skill.
Hmm.
They don't know it because they don't read on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And I've seen students struggle with it. They can't see what's wrong in the sentence, because one is they've not been exposed to a lot of reading. And another thing is they don't see it as music. Here, even if somebody's speaking, even if my
Hmm.
student is reading out what he has written,
Hmm.
I will recognize a mistake, though I'm not seeing the words, because
Yeah.
I'm listening, and it's kind of like I say, it's like music. You can hear a particular rhythm, and
Right.
if that's missing, you can point out an error.
Okay.
Uh, I started to see sentences as, you know, the way I describe it is that, Lego bricks. you
Yes.
you take you There's a connection between every word, and there's a
Hmm.
connection. So when you have bricks, you put them in a particular order, you can change them.
Hmm.
You can use something to connect it to something else.
Right.
So it's kind of like a tree. Also, you have a main
Hmm.
idea and it's spreading out in different things. And the
Very
basic
good.
unit of writing is a sentence.
Hmm.
We are not taught in school, particularly for English, that there is a word order. You have a
Hmm.
subject, verb, and an object. Or not
Hmm.
all languages, it word order is very important. To a certain extent, it is. But in English, there is the subject, verb, and object doesn't change a lot. It generally
Hmm.
stays like that. And then there are other things we add to it. We will add an adjective. We will add an adverb. So we make it more descriptive.
Hmm.
Um, we will add words and phrases.
Hmm.
And so one of the things I learned is common mistakes, subject verb agreement. um, I use a noun, I use a pronoun, but then I've not
Hmm.
used shown the connecting noun earlier.
Okay. Hmm.
A common mistake, children use it a lot, but what
Hmm.
does that it refer to in the previous sentence?
Hmm.
So I'm fascinated by this mechanics of the language. I
Okay.
mean, vocabulary and all that comes in, but how do you structure a sentence, and how do you get children to understand that you can actually play around with it. You know, you can, like a common example I give is the king wears a gold crown. So here gold is a word, and it's an adjective describing crown. I can say the king wears a crown of gold. Then
Yes.
of gold becomes a phrase, but I'm still saying the same thing.
Yes.
So my sentence gets lengthened, but I'm using it's still now of gold is describing the crown, not just gold. And then I can also say the king wears a crown which is made of gold. So now I'm using a clause. I put a verb there, it is dependent. So which is made of gold is still telling me about the crown. So you can write your sentences in different ways. If you're doing summary writing, you will choose the first option, because then I have less words. I'll just say gold crown. But otherwise I can say which is made of gold. So this kind of thing of how kids can play around with the words. I mean, it takes a long time. It should start as early as possible, but we don't pay attention to it as much in writing. And that's where I feel that's where my expertise lies. And when I teach students, I try to bring that in. Of course, it's related to some level of comprehension also. They should be reading. There should be some interest, at least in terms of what they're doing in school, if not outside books, you know. But to answer your question, that's how I, whether it is, I taught a class at TIS, whether it is students there who are, you know, almost in their early 20s, or it is other students, you know, who are in the 9th and 10th. I like teaching higher grades rather than smaller. You can get them interested or somehow fascinated. It's in their control in terms of how they write. They can make it better, you know. So if they know their options, they can learn how to make it better. So those are the different things I teach them. And I wish this was done more in school, you know. We just say write a sentence, write a composition, but some students really struggle at the sentence level.
True.
And that's what, you know, I try to do when I'm teaching them. We just assume that they know, but like I said, a non-reader will find it difficult to know certain things. A reader will just take it for granted, like I did, because we read, we figured out how to construct a sentence. Nobody said, do put this here, put this there. So that's where I feel the child shouldn't feel like they can't do it. They can do it with a little bit of help and understanding, you know.
Yes, right. I agree with you. So while tutoring, how do you create an environment that fosters a love for literature? And how do you encourage students back? Because that is the most difficult part, I think.
Yeah. So even when you're doing writing, it's connected to reading. Here again, you know, if you look at studies, there's a lot going on when people read. So we are taking in the information, we are understanding the words, we are at student level, we don't know a word, but from the situation, from the context, we can guess what the word means.
Yes.
And we are processing information, what is going to happen next, you know, those kind of things. So when I read, I try to do, even if it's history or geography or whatever, read out loud. I try to get the student to read out loud, go back, sometimes repeat the paragraph. I'll read one paragraph, you read one paragraph, like that. And when I'm reading it, there is a lot of, I bring intonation, emphasis. Somehow subconsciously, if I'm emphasizing a word, it hits their mind that, you know, there's something important being said here. And then we'll stop and say, okay, what do you think happens next? What do you think this word means? Why did this character do this? You know, things like that. So that is, I actually call it like climbing into a book. The book becomes like an immersive experience. You get involved in the story, and you can, I'd ask them to imagine, if they're imagining, if you're reading a scene, draw it. How do
Okay.
you think this scene is? If there's a tree, there's a house, there's a road, that's what the story is telling you. Paint, draw it. How do you visualize it? Because what I visualize and what somebody else visualizes is different.
Yes.
So it basically, reading, we are painting pictures in our mind. So I'm trying to see if the student is also doing that. Kids now, even library is not it's not considered like an essential subject like math. If you miss a math class, you have to catch up in math. But sometimes somebody wants to catch up with work, the library class goes, and another teacher comes to take up that class. So the library class must be there. Let them choose their books. Let them, somebody read it out to them to get them interested. And that, I think, plays a big role. Of course, if you look at the pattern of readers, you'll see that somebody in the house always read. We became readers because somebody in our house, we saw them reading. So that's how we learned, or in school or something like that. But if we don't place the emphasis on the books, what happens is, even textbooks, they're reluctant to read. So if we start with storybooks earlier, then it has a chain effect. If I don't read my textbook, I'm not making my notes. I'm expecting the teacher to give me notes. But if I write my own notes, even if I'm just putting annotations in the textbook, that means something I've understood, or I've made some kind of bullet points and all that. Sometimes they just don't write in the textbook. So all that helps in terms of absorbing, and it makes it, if you start getting them interested in stories at a younger age, then everything becomes a story. History becomes a story. How a volcano erupts becomes a story. Everything can be a story. And I think human beings are tuned to stories. They will listen if all of us listen to stories all the time. So it's easy to get them at a younger age. That's why I, instill that. I like to instill that, but it's difficult with higher grades. They don't, if for a child, it's easier. You can still, like up to grade 5, it's still easier to get them interested. They have other things to deal with when they're 9 or 10th. It's passing this exam. So the interest in books, or the trying to get them involved in books, is a little difficult at a higher grade.
Okay. What strategies do you employ to teach grammar and language conventions, as we can say?
Yeah. So I myself have tried and tested that if you go by rules, it becomes very boring and uninteresting. And anyway, everyone has a fear of grammar. The grammar section in the paper is like, how will I do well in this? Because we teach it in a very abstract way. We don't teach it from the point of view as a tool for writing. We need to teach it as a tool for writing. We'll say, this is the noun, learn nouns, these are nouns, these are verbs. But in a sentence, a word, whether it's a noun or a verb, depends on the role it's playing in the sentence. If it is, it may look like a verb, but it may be acting like what we called a participle. It's actually a verb acting as an adjective. So I'll say, if I say the children are dancing, or the children are dancing at the party. Okay, that is dancing. It's a verb. It's an action that's happening. The dancing bears were a big hit at the circus. Here I'm using dancing, but it's an adjective. I'm describing the bears. And if I say dancing is my favorite pastime, it's a noun. It's doing the work of a noun. So it doesn't depend on, there are no set adjectives and verbs and nouns. It depends on what role they are playing in the sentence. So if we try and teach them the roles, this word is, what is it doing? It's describing this. Okay, it's an adjective. This one, what's it doing? It's telling us, it's the subject. It's what the sentence is about. So that way it becomes a little more interesting rather than, just
correct, mugging up the rule.
Adjective, mugging up the rule. That's what bothers the kids, because suppose I forget the rule. And is it following the rule? Is it not following? There's too much emphasis on that. If we just teach it from the sentence point of view, it'll become a little more easier and interesting, and then they learn how to use it, manipulate it. It's also, so I don't, we used to do this, adjective qualifies the noun and adverb some other word. I just say, what does it tell you about? If dancing bears tells me about what? It tells me about the bears. The bears is the noun, so then dancing is an adjective. Something like that, so it becomes easier. Another thing that I wish they would do is, when I did my 10th, I was in the CBSE, I was doing the CBSE board, but not in India. My parents were in the Gulf, so I was studying there. And we had a chapter in grammar. I remember it to this day. It was called analysis of sentences. So you would take a sentence and break it up. This is the main clause. This is a clause that is dependent on something in the main clause. So when you break it up, again, it goes to structure. So then I understand when I'm writing, if I've made a mistake, every word is connected to something else. Are my connections showing? Is there something missing? And then the reverse of that was synthesis. So you give me two sentences and tell me to join it. That's how I learned to use my connectors. But, and, so, if, then, else. Right. So I learned to use that because I'm connecting two sentences. And so what I'm doing is, I have two ideas. How do I want to show the relationship between the ideas? I use when to show time, if to show condition. So those kind of things. Just don't talk about the rules. Just use words like connectors and those kind of things. Linking devices is a new thing they use in school.
Correct. So we don't want to, so that the students are not scared away.
Yeah, students are scared, adults are scared, teachers are also scared of grammar. I have a teacher who she's teaching somewhere, but she'll off and on she'll send me a sentence saying, what is this? Is it a noun? Is it an adjectives? Or she wants to check before she tells her class. So they are also, I don't blame anyone. We didn't do this kind of things, but if you're teaching a language, there should be some kind of specialization in that. And I think it happens in the course of the teaching. But when the teacher is doing one particular language, then she should know that well. And writing, if you connect grammar to writing, then it's clearly understood as a tool. It's not separate from writing.
You're editing textbooks for school, right? For computer science and environmental science and so on.
Yeah.
So how is that experience?
That's very interesting. When I started editing, I was doing a lot of like random articles and all that. But then I found that I was gravitating I enjoyed the textbooks the most. So I've done up to grade 8, like say from grade 5 to grade 8 or grade 1 to grade 8. And again, it is, if you take computer science, it's, I like to treat the book as a textbook. So what the students do is, the content is very good that's chosen. They make sure that children are learning a word processing program, besides teaching the basics of computer. So they teach them something about Word, or how to make a presentation, spreadsheets. All three are covered. What I really like is they're going into coding also. So they're teaching them coding in a simple, like, there are programs that are drag and drop. So you pick up something which does one action, you pick up something else which does another action. So the child is creating while they are learning coding.
Okay.
And that I never expected. That was really an eye-opener, that they're teaching students coding.
Okay.
And in higher grades, they're also teaching them CAD, computer-aided design. So if you want to print, like nowadays you have what do they call those printers where you can actually print plastic objects. I'm not getting the word right now. So you teach them how to design something and then print that out. So they actually make their own objects, and there is a lot of this stuff that's free online. I didn't know. A lot of this is aimed at children learning.
Okay.
So in schools, some of the books that I've edited, they are going into those subjects and they're teaching that also. It's really interesting. So my way of doing it is they have certain they have steps, like you do when you're doing a particular action. These are the steps that you have to follow. So I make sure that stuff is very clear, because even in the absence of the teacher, the textbook becomes a reference book. If you follow those steps, you'll be able to do it on your own. So that's my approach when I'm working with computer text. EVS, or environmental studies, is basically a mix of science and social studies. So you will have chapters like, for younger children, community helpers, people, the postman, the carpenter, a tailor. What do these people do? People who garbage collectors. So that is the social part of it that's there. And there is what we did, rotation and revolution, plants, biology. So basically science in the lower grade, sciences and social studies is mixed as one, in one book, as one topic, and that is environmental studies. That also beautiful books. They focus so much on illustrations, very well printed and laid out, and very nice for children to look at, to learn.
Nice.
I enjoy the experience of doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Please tell us about your newsletter, Getting to the Quan.
So getting to the Quan, people ask me, what does that mean? What is that, the Quan? So if you've seen this movie, Jerry Maguire, it's about a sports agent and a very difficult client of his. For some reason, he leaves this big sports agency that he's working on. They actually fire him, so he's on his own, and he starts with one client. That client is a very difficult person. So one day in the course of conversation with that client says that I'm not only, he says, you're not getting me good contracts. I want to earn more money. And he says, but I believe in the Quan, and not just the coin, I believe in the Quan. So then he asks him, the sports agent, Jerry Maguire asks, what do you mean by Quan? So he says, and I wrote the quote down, he says it means love, respect, community, and the dollars too, the whole package, the Quan. So the Quan means a balance in life of different things: love, respect, community, your work, and earning enough money. So when I say getting to the Quan, it is my journey to get to that, to be able to achieve that balance.
Yes.
And so if you've seen, I don't write about one thing, I write about my work, but I write about films and about language and everything. So that's what getting to the Quan means. It covers all is my journey as a
Yes.
writer and editor. So
Whatever you are experiencing along the way, you are
way
penning it
along the
down.
way. Yeah.
Wow.
In
Nice.
that
I
quest
like
to
the.
achieve, in the quest to achieve that balance, in life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you plan to learn any more languages?
I never really seriously thought about it. I used to think about French, whether I would do, because in school we did French, but that was very basic. That was like
Mhm.
eighth and ninth. I didn't go further with that. Sometimes I feel I'm interested more less about French and more about like Italian. I feel it
Oh,
sounds like Indian languages.
mhm.
Italian is a little rough and loud. It's not quiet like French. The words are said differently,
Right.
or even Portuguese, because I feel it may be easier with my Goan background to learn Portuguese.
Mhm.
I
Oh.
recently discovered that for bread we say pão, and the Portuguese also say pão. It's the same word. So I
Mhm.
feel now I'm feeling that maybe there'll be some similarities and maybe easier to learn. So I may explore that, but it's not really a long-term goal. It's something I think about off and on. I haven't done
Correct.
anything seriously about it. Yeah.
Yes, whenever the references pop up, we think that we should learn this language, but the busy routine does not let us do that.
Doesn't. Yeah.
What do you think should change in the language industry?
So if I'm considering the language industry, it would be what I do, uh,
Mhm.
writing, publishing, whatever. Even my teaching, I'd consider language as the whole thing.
Right.
Um, a lot of what I already said, that it's it has to be looked at as a life skill, writing and
Mhm.
speaking. What do we do 24 hours a day? We are always communicating, even if we are, even if it is not with words or drawings or
Mhm.
whatever, it's communication.
Right.
And all problems in the world come from communication also. Whether it's in whether if you analyze why you don't get along with somebody even at home, or why you've had a fight, if you think about it, it comes back to the way I said my words, or the way they may have heard my words. So it all comes back to communication. So
Mhm.
language is the base. Give Everybody should have a way to express themselves.
Mhm.
And if you use language properly, you can get, I believe you can get what you want even when you write.
Mhm.
You read speeches by well-known people like Martin Luther King, I have a dream. You're spreading
Mhm.
an idea through words.
Mhm. Right.
You apologize to somebody, you're communicating something. You
Mhm.
want a job, you're communicating something. So you can get what you want,
Mhm.
even peace and quiet, and even
Mhm.
get along with friends and neighbors through your words, what you say
Okay.
and how to say them. So
Yes.
I think it's really the basis, and it also serves as an outlet. Like for me,
Mhm.
it became a way of dealing with my anxiety. So
Okay.
children and everybody should have that outlet.
Mhm.
Expression, when you write something, nobody else has written it, so it's your
Mhm.
own. You're creating something. And
Correct.
creation is of something of your own. Even if you're cooking or uh, drawing, when you create something of your own, it is only yours. And
Mhm.
it's like a signature of yours. So everybody should have that, to say that this
Mhm.
is mine, rather than I'm doing it for somebody else.
Mhm.
When we work and all, we're doing whatever we write and all is for someone else. But if you do
Correct.
something for yourself, whether it's cooking or writing or painting or whatever, it's your own creation, and nobody else can say it's theirs, it's yours.
Mhm.
So that's why I think it's one way of an outlet. And others may go into painting or sculpting and all, but that, I think people suffer with anxiety and mental stress because they don't have an outlet for their creativity.
Mhm.
If you discover an outlet for your creativity, it will help you. It will get you to the quad, that
Mhm.
outlet for your creativity. You know.
Yes. Which book of yours is coming up now?
Um, I'm. Uh, I'm still writing poems, so I think
Mhm.
another collection will come out.
Okay.
The other things are just like in my head. There's no
Mhm.
practical work happening on it yet, but yeah, I will continue to write and to bring out something. That's the idea. That's what I want to do. I've
Okay.
discovered it late, but
Uh-huh.
I'm happy with it now
Better late.
that I can.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
certainly. So I wish you all the best for your upcoming book
Thank you, Lalita. Thank you.
and
So,
all the
uh,
other projects that you have in hand.
definitely. I hope my book does well. Uh, it's just a learning experience now, but I hope to gain some knowledge when going forward
Mhm.
with other books. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Lalita.
Thank you so much for joining, Michelle, and wish you best again for your plans.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure
Thank
talking to
you.
you.
Same here. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.